I've heard, criticism about him and his injuries. Do you think they should trade him now while he's healthy to get a
No,
best deal?
no, I don't trade Aaron Judge from the Yankees. I'm not saying it's a silly question because, I know that fans have kind of brought that up.
The Dissection with Erin Mulligan.
Personally, I think right now the pitchers have an advantage. What are your thoughts on pitchers and batters, and do you think batters will be able to catch up to the pitchers because they obviously need more time to?
They absolutely do, and this is something that Zach Britton was talking about yesterday. We had him on a Zoom call, and I think that it's just easier for a pitcher to simulate a game situation than it is for a hitter because, these guys were pretty much working out throughout the quarantine. They were able to go up, get their velocity up, get on the mound. A lot of guys even had batters stand in against them. So I think the flip side of that, the hitters weren't able to find pitchers, at least not of their caliber, the caliber of the velocity that they were going to face. So a lot of them were left to hitting off tees or hitting off machines. But until you get in there against a pitcher, it's not really the real thing. And so I think that's what you've seen so far in the early intra-squad games is that the pitchers are clearly ahead of the hitters. And I think the one exception is a couple homers already in the Yankees intra-squad games. But other than that, everybody else is kind of making soft contact. And so it's going to take some time for sure. When you're going up there against a guy like Garrett Cole, who's throwing 99 at this point, that's just unfair, considering you haven't faced a live pitcher in quite some time. And so they still got 2 weeks to get it going. So typically they always say spring training is for the pitchers and the hitters are ready to go quicker. So the pitchers look ready now, and now it's the hitters' turn. But I think that having 2 weeks to go, they can simulate a lot of at-bats. The good news for the Yankees is they've got such good pitchers. Mike Tauchman was saying this yesterday, that you're facing basically an all-star, these elite arms every time you go out there. That's going to really get them ready for when competition starts.
Right. I know. I was watching Judge in his press conference, and he was talking about how Cole was throwing 99, and I was like, oh, my gosh. Crazy. Do you think players who peak later on in the season will this shorter season affect them more so, or will they just go with the flow?
I think, yeah. I mean, for example, a Cole is a great jumping off point here because if you look at what he did last year with Houston, his first 10 starts weren't great. He was not on a Cy Young track, and then he really caught fire after that. So he's going to have to figure out a way to start right out of the gate. And I think that probably it works in his favor that he's kept throwing this whole time. But, yeah, you talk about those slow starters or guys who, Teixeira was a great example during his playing career. He was always slow in April. You can't have a slow April here because the season is only 2 months. And so, these guys are going to need to figure out a way to rev it up. And baseball is a game of failure. Look, if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're one of the best. And so I think it's going to be difficult to get that production early across the board from everybody. But teams are going to have to because you're in a situation here where during a regular season, 162, if you lose 7 out of 10, I mean, that happens. And, teams go into those kind of skids and you can recover from that. But you lose 7 out of 10 here, you just lost the 6 of the season pretty much. And so every game is going to be way more important. It's basically like we fast forwarded to July 23rd and every team is just in first place across the board. So it's going to be a pennant race like we've never seen before. And there's just going to be great ramifications for every single game. It should be fun to watch. It really should.
Yeah, it will. How do you see the shortened season affecting the playoffs?
Well, I think that you could have some surprise teams sneak in there. If you get a team that gets hot and can run off like 15 out of 20 wins, you're all of a sudden a playoff team. So I don't think that any team is really out of it. We had a pretty good idea, for example, in the American League East, the Yankees were probably going to win the division. The Tampa Bay Rays would probably be the wild card team, but with 60 games, you could flip-flop that. I could certainly see that happening. Or I could see a Toronto getting hot with those young kids they have there, or even a Boston, I guess, could, conceivably. Baltimore, probably not, but you never know. I mean, I can't say Baltimore would be out of it completely. So, but yeah, like I would, if I'm the Yankees, I am worried right now about Tampa Bay, perhaps getting hot, running off a hot streak and outplaying them over that kind of small window. I think that Toronto is a dangerous team as well in that division. And I think you can probably look at every division and find a team that was not favored to win. But now that it's just 60 games, anybody can catch the right hot streak and might be able to surprise some people.
Exactly. So, obviously we've had the intra-squad games. As far as the Yankees go, who would your starting lineup consist of?
Well, it looks like they're probably not going to have DJ LeMahieu back, so I think that changes everything as far as the infield goes. You're going to have Gary Sanchez behind the plate. You'll have Luke Voigt and Mike Ford swapping out at first base. Second base is going to be interesting for me. I think Tyler Wade, Tyro Estrada could be in the mix there. Boone talked yesterday about Matt Duffy, who was signed as a free agent and is in camp competing for a job. I think he's a possibility there too, just a veteran who's done it a little bit. Glaber will be at short. Third base, it will be Urshela's job to lose. I think that Miguel Andujar is going to try and get some at-bats there, but I think Urshela will get the majority of the playing time. Now, just going around the outfield left to right, you probably have Brett Gardner in left. Aaron Hicks will probably be ready in center field. And then Judge will be in right. So that leaves Stanton to DH. And you'll have a rotation of guys looking for at-bats in the outfield, whether it's Mike Tauchman, Clint Frazier, Tyler Wade could get some time out there if he's not the second baseman. So Andujar could play some corner outfield. He didn't look great yesterday in right field, but he looked pretty good in spring training out and left. And so he's done a lot of progress there. So I think we've gone around the horn here and kind of I think it's pretty set. The only question is how fast can LeMahieu come back? And that's the great unknown. He's got to test negative twice before he can come back. And so every case is really going to be different. The good news with him is he seems to be asymptomatic. So he's been able to continue working out and doing stuff. And the other unknown is, will they have any other positive tests? Because this could change a lot between now and opening day.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens between Wade and Tyro Estrada. So it should be exciting to watch.
Estrada's showing some pop, like I mentioned. He's the bat has looked pretty good. And so I think he only played something like 30 games at the big league level last year. So we haven't really seen him an extended playing time. But I think that that is definitely an option that I would not look past, is that having Estrada at second base.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Judge. I've heard, criticism about him and his injuries. Do you think they should trade him now while he's healthy to get a best deal?
No, I don't trade Aaron Judge if I'm the Yankees. I'm not saying it's a silly question because, I know that fans have kind of brought that up once in a while, but I think that that's a franchise talent. That's a player that you build your team around. You don't trade him away. And so, Aaron does need to stay healthy. He needs to stay on the field because we know how great he can be when he's right. You look at that 2017 season, he hit 52 homers. He was the rookie of the year. He was one of the best players in baseball. And when he's healthy, he is one of the best players in baseball. But I think the problem is when you're 6'7", 280, that's a big body, and he throws it around. He goes 100%. And you see him – I always think back to that game at Fenway Park where he tumbled over the short wall in right field and messed up his shoulder a little bit. And, even last year, that diving catch in the outfield where he cracked the rib, and that has continued a ripple effect that is still continuing now. So, I think that it's a big body. He's a football player on a baseball field. And so it's tough for him to kind of slow it down and go a little easy. I remember thinking during that rookie year, it was like, why do you even have to have him play the outfield? You can put somebody out there who can catch fly balls, but I want to keep that bat in the lineup for 550 plate appearances. I want to see that guy hit. And so, but I think he's the kind of guy you can't tell him to go halfway. And so he's going to always be that all-out player, which is what you want. He's a competitor. He's between the white lines, there's only one way that Aaron knows how to play the game. And so you just kind of deal with the injuries and try to find a way. Aaron Boone needs to try to find a way to keep him healthy. But here in this situation, you want that guy playing as many games as possible. Hopefully the Yankees can get him for all 60.
Yeah. I think if they were to trade him, it would be one of the biggest devastations to the organization.
What would they do with the judges' chambers?
Exactly. No other player has that. Exactly.
No.
Well, for you, from watching him in person, does he look 100% to you?
He says he's 100%. I don't think he looks 100% yet. I think a lot of it is just getting his timing back because he's only recently started to hit off pitching. They kind of slow played it during spring training. He was down there in Tampa for weeks and months, but he wasn't doing a whole lot until recently when they found out when opening day was actually going to be and when the season was going to get started. So the benefit for him was he got all this time to rest, an injury that probably would have kept him out for, Brian Cashman was saying they didn't expect him back until summertime. And so here we are in summertime, and Judge should be ready to go when the season starts. But I watched him closely yesterday. He was out there taking some additional BP after everything wrapped up, and he was hitting off a pitching machine. And they had Stevie Donahue, the trainer, was out there watching him pretty closely. And so Stevie doesn't usually do that with anybody. So I think that kind of serves as an indication for me that no, he's not 100% yet, but should he be 100% or good enough on opening day? I do believe he will be.
Okay. Sounds good. Since you've been at the stadium, I can imagine it's a little strange and empty. What's it been?
Yeah.
And do you have any restrictions as to where you can and cannot go?
Yeah, we the media is restricted to the 200 level, which is the press box level. So we're not allowed on the field. We're not going in the clubhouse. None of that. I mean, Major League Baseball has split us all into tiers, and so the players are tier 1 people. They're allowed to go on the field and they can do whatever. Tier 2 would be like in Cashman, who can interact and also could interact with us. But tier 3, which is what the media is, never speaks to a tier 1 face-to-face. So it's a strange world compared to where we were in March when, we could just walk into the clubhouse. And if I wanted to, walk up to Judge and say, hey, Erin, you got a few minutes? Sure. What's up?
Right.
And have an interview face-to-face. Right now we're doing all of the interviews on Zoom. So the Yankees PR department has actually been really great with setting it up. And, we've been getting probably 5, 6, 7 Zoom calls a day with these guys. So I feel like we have had the opportunity to ask questions that we would. The only difference is it's all in a group setting because we're all logged on to the same Zoom call. And you don't get that kind of one-on-one intimate situation that you would if I was just going up to Aaron Judge's locker. Right now it's almost like everything is a press conference. And so I think you do lose some of kind of the authenticity of it. But, at the end of the day, we're having the opportunity to ask the questions, and this is kind of a strange time for everybody. So the one good thing is I've learned how to use Zoom pretty well, and it's something that I never used before March. And I think it's working out pretty well. I think it's here to stay.
Yeah. So you've been with the Yankees for a while now. What has been your best memory?
Oh, best memory.
Memories.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that I have to point to Game 6 of the 2009 World Series. I think that just the fact that there was such excitement around the city at that time, and the fact that I had been with that team from day one of spring training all the way through this crazy marathon of a season, and now they're in the playoffs, and now they're in the World Series, and now you look up in the 7th inning of that game, and Hideki Matsui has gone nuts, and you realize that the Yankees are going to win the World Series tonight. They're going to win this thing, and kind of that anticipation, that energy that was in that building, that kind of uneasy, almost like waiting to explode as the 7th inning went away, and then the 8th inning went away. And now it's the 9th inning, and Shane Victorino hits that ground ball to Cano, and you realize that it's over. The Yankees are going to win here, and I'm going to have covered a World Series winning team. And I'm going to write the story about the Yankees winning the World Series. And so I think that moment was really cool. And it's got personal meaning for me, too. I mean, my wife, as I mentioned, who was working in the Yankees PR department at the time, and, we were dating at the time. And so we were kind of together. At least we were in the same press box to kind of experience it together. And so that's kind of, it's part of our story too, which is cool. And then I got to go back 10 years later and relive it in the book. So I think I got to point to that. But I mean, Derek walking off in his final at bat was awesome. The final game that Mariano walked off when Jeter and Pettit took the ball from him, that was so cool. And there's been a lot of really cool ones, but I think I got to go to the Yankees winning the World Series because that's the one I've gotten to cover.